Hi, guys. This is Carol Klingon Targherder, your host today, and I'm doing something a little different. In addition to moving up the time an hour, uh, I am I'm telling a very personal story that has changed the trajectory of not only my life but the life of my whole family. And time remains to be seen whether it's for the best for the remaining family. You know, it was certainly a good change for my mother. She loved this place. She died here. She was out on that front porch with those animals kind of right up against the fence to hang out with her as part of the herd, and she loved it here. She really did. Okay, and so I'm going to start out by redoing a lot
I lost your audio. You're
Okay.
garbling.
How
Yeah,
about now?
That
Is it good?
that's yep.
that's better.
All right. And this is about my brother, who was 11 years older than me and my only sibling. Um, I'll read this and then I'll explain. All he had to do to not lose the farm, to not lose his home, was not beat up his baby sister. All in the world that would have been necessary for him to stay in the place he'd been calling home for the last 50 years of his life was not to barge into the home of his sister, brother-in-law, and mother and beat up the sister at 10:30 in the morning when she was still in her nightgown after having just served their mother her breakfast. He did this in front of the person who was still the legal owner of the place, who just so happened to be his 91-year-old mother, who was walker dependent and a heart patient. All he had to do to keep a home was not drive an hour into the town of his only remaining family and break his 91-year-old mother's heart and traumatize his baby sister to the point she was unrecognizable to herself as a person for years. That's it. That's all he had to do. Yes, I'm driving this point home to the point of death. I'll just say this in conclusion. Most people to take would not find it difficult to not take an hour's drive over to their sister's house at 9:30 in the morning with murder on their mind and keep that going in their sick little head for the entirety of the hour's drive. My brother was not one of those people. He had been getting by with this behavior for decades. It was high time he paid, and pay he did. Um, he it was an hour's drive into Springdale, just if you're going normal speed, which was the town that Steve and I and Mom were living in. And but he had come over from the sale barn in Stillwell, Oklahoma, which is an hour's drive under the best of circumstances. when he when he was coming up the side, the scenario that took place was I was clearing the breakfast dishes off of Mama's little side table. She'd just finished her breakfast and was drinking her tea. And she said, "Carol, Daly's out there," because she could see his car. But she couldn't see him. "I don't know where he is," she said. And so I opened the door. We had a front door and a storm door. And I was peeking out the storm door and I couldn't see him anywhere. And then out from nowhere, he's bounding up the walkway into our home with that look in his eye that I had seen before. And I knew it wasn't going to be good. And when I say the look in his eyes, it was murder. He was looking at me as a human being not fit to live. And that has messed with me. I'll just say that. When he started barging up the sidewalk and I could see that look in his eyes, my instinct was to shut the front door and lock it And he knew that that's what I was getting ready to do. And he leapt for the front door and pushed his way through. And he's standing over me, waving a sale barn check that he just got from Stillwell. And the best I've been able to come up with is what was going on in his head was he didn't get what he was expecting to get for the cow that he had just sold, or cows maybe even. It was like way down from what he was used to getting when he'd take his cows in to sell them. And somehow that was my fault in his sick little head. Me and the GoFundMe that he thought he'd gotten the idea in his head that I started just to keep the money and not put it toward a family funeral. The situation was at that time, my sister-in-law had left him in January, and this is July. And along about that time, the granddaughter of my sister-in-law, who had lived with them off and on, had moved to Oklahoma City after moving from a whole bunch of towns trying to dodge, from what I understand, was Child Protective Services in different counties, ending up in Oklahoma City with her boyfriend and her babies. And she left the house, left the boyfriend in charge of the babies while she went out to get groceries, she says. And I'm just going to take her at her word for that. And he beat the 8-month-old baby to the point where her head was swollen twice to 3 times its size, and the baby succumbed to her wounds after being hospitalized and put on life-saving measures. There was just no saving her life. It was more than her little 8-month-old body could withstand. So yes, emotions were running very high at the time. And when I read the article in the Oklahoma City newspaper about the incident, of course, the boyfriend was behind bars, and there was a GoFundMe link in the actual newspaper article. I clicked on it. I donated $100 on behalf of myself, my husband, my mother, and my brother. Well, somehow he had gotten this GoFundMe thing in his head that I started a GoFundMe. This is what I've been piecing together, is what was going on in the sick little head of his. And so somehow he got it in his head that I'd started this GoFundMe. All these donations had come in to pay for the funeral. And when it was time to cash out that GoFundMe and go pay the funeral home, well, the funeral home was not getting paid because, woohoo, I'd stole money from a baby's funeral. Yay me. Do I look like the kind of person that would do that? You don't know me from Adam, maybe. Do I look the kind of person who would do such a thing?
No.
Just tell me.
No,
not at all.
no. Not what I know about you. You'd never do that.
I would not do that.
No, absolutely not.
I cannot lie. I do not have a poker face at all. Never have.
Right.
Never will. So basically what I've been able to piece together is that he thought that, he was going to sell a cow and pay for the whole funeral since his sister was stealing all this money. And he was going to get to be the hero of the day, but he didn't get enough from the sale of his cows to do it. And he, being the hero of the day, he was going to get his wife back after he'd done untellable things to her, physically, mentally, emotionally. He was just going to get her back after 24 years of misery. Yeah, no, that was not happening. But in his sick little head, it was going to happen.
Oh,
He had a plan. And part of that plan ended up including murdering his baby sister for not getting the outcome that he had desired, because that's what he did. It was always, when things did not turn out the way he wanted them to, it was always someone else's fault, never his. Never once did he ever take an nth of personal responsibility for anything that ever befell him, ever. Not once. Not one time in his whole sick, sad existence and sad excuse of a life.
Wow.
And this is my only sibling, 11 years older than me, who started beating me up when I was a little kid. And he was a big, strong high school farm boy, football player. Yeah. He liked to beat up animals too. And I saw a few of those things. And the video of that playing in my head will never leave me. It will haunt me the rest of my life. And I am still traumatized from that.
Can't unsee
Almost
things.
more than the abuse I suffered personally. That's what haunts me the worst. Because I love animals. I always have. You know, I feel like animals get me.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Megan, hi. I can see the chat. I can't respond. So hello, Megan. I just wanted to acknowledge
I haven't
that.
even brought up the chat. I apologize, guys. I'm just going to be talking and doing my best to get through this, but I've been one for a very long time.
You're doing fine now. You're doing fine.
And it's just time to get it out there, you know?
Yeah. It's very healing to just speak it, because when you speak it becomes real, you know, not that it obviously is very real for you.
It's been very surreal.
Right.
This happened in 2018, July of 2018.
I believe you were looking at two people. If you wanted to cry the rest of the live cast, we would stay here with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
much.
Absolutely.
So how I'm going to get through the incident that happened in July of 2018 is I'm going to be reading from my application for the domestic protection order. It was the initial application, and that's the only way that I can get through the actual incident. Thank you. Okay, here goes. On the morning of July 13, 2018, at somewhere between 10:30 and 10:48 in the morning, my brother, Daley King, had driven to my house, the house I share with my husband, Steve, and my mother. Mom said Daley's car was parked out in front, that she could not see him. I had just made and given her breakfast and was still in my nightgown. I opened the front door. We have a wood, glass, and a glass storm door. For a second or two, maybe, I could not see him. I'm shaking, you guys. So
That's okay.
I'm going to be stuttering.
Take your time. Yeah. No, you're not. You're doing fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing really good. You're doing good.
For a second or few, I could not see him either. As I opened the storm door to peer out and see if I could see where he was, he came storming up the front walk with a look of, I call it, murderous rage in his eyes. For a split second, I had a decision to make as to whether to close the door, closing him out, or trust that he would not harm me. The next thing I knew, he was in my face, screaming at the top of his lungs and waving a sale barn check around. The very next thing I knew, I was backed up against a piece of furniture and into a corner, which is backed up against the wall. Daley towering over me, not a foot of space between us as he continued screaming. I remember trying a couple of times, talking in a soft voice, bewilderment, trying to figure out what the matter was. He screamed at me those times to shut up every time. When he backed me up against the wall and got closer in my face, I started screaming back at him. Fight or flight had kicked in at that point. He screamed, "Shut up!" again and started punching me. He punched me several times on the left side of my face by the time my husband came into the room. I do not know how he managed to get between me and Daly to shield me. Daly was my brother, and my husband is Steve. I just know I was on my way to the ground with a fistful of his hair, and I pulled and ripped as hard as I could, still going down to the ground. All the while, Daly was still punching. I remember being stunned at the sight of a large clump of his hair in my hand, which had been detached from his head. The next thing I remember is noticing myself on the ground with my head halfway propped up against the large ottoman we have in front of the couch. After, however, many moments of orienting myself as to where I was, I heard Steve's soft voice as he covered me with his body. Somehow, he managed to pick me up off the ground and get me seated safely on the couch where the ottoman would prevent Daly from being able to get at me without throwing himself out of balance and taking a fall himself, because he had a half of a foot that he'd cut off in anger his senior year of high school. All of this happened inches away from my frail, crippled 91-year-old mother who has a heart condition is on her third pacemaker. All the while, Daly is still screaming, and his body language suggested he would still try to physically hurt me if he could get at me a little easier. He towers over the ottoman in front of me, screaming words. All of his screaming had words. I do not recall any specific words, so I still do not know what he was upset about, or what it had to do with me, or even what he thought it had to do with me. As he continues to scream, or more of a yell back up, as he continues to scream, I scream, or more of a yell back up to him, pointing over to my mom, trying to remind him there is a 91-year-old woman with a heart condition present. Then, as he continues to scream undecipherable words, I simply switch to saying, "Get out of here! Get out!" as forcibly as I could. And I was also screaming, "I promised myself I would never let you touch me again," as forcibly as I could. The next thing I remember is Steve and Daly outside where I could see them out the window of the storm door. They exchanged a few words, then Daly stormed to his car and drove away fast and recklessly. I remember hoping he didn't hurt somebody while driving like that out on the road. Steve came back in and checked on me. Then we called the police. I have a swollen face and sore jaw and a tooth that feels loose. I have swelling still on the side of my face where he struck me, a very black eye, a sprained or strained wrist that I have to keep wrapped in an ace bandage 24 hours a day to keep it from hurting. My tailbone hurts so badly I can barely walk or even sit. I do sit, but it hurts too. I have defensive cuts and bruises all over my right arm and a pretty good sized scrape on my back. I'm wounded and sore everywhere but my feet and lower legs, except for one scraped place on my shin that also swelled up with a bump. My neck is really stiff. Steve never threw a punch, not one. Both he and Mom, and Daly, if he's honest, can attest to that. Steve's only goal was protecting me from further injury and preventing Mom from being injured, as she was completely helpless to even move away from the scene unfolding before her. He has a black eye left, a bruise and soreness on the left side around his rib cage, and scrapes on both of his knees. He has a mangled cut on his right toe. Mom has trauma and has to see my black eye, which gives her a sick feeling in her stomach. She is now fearful of her son and uncertain what he is capable of doing next. And I'll say, in addition to that, she sobbed like I've never heard her sob, never wanted to ever hear her sob again for days. For days.
How do you feel rereading all of that?
Well, you know, over time you forget detail and you remember details differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, you know, I do remember coming to and I'm seeing the floor. So over time, I equate it to my head being on the floor and I can see the floor. You know, we had a flood the year before and it had flooded our whole house, coming up into the bedrooms. It didn't get very far up into the bedrooms because the carpeting in the bedrooms had absorbed it, but we had to take up every last bit of flooring in the whole house. And we had still not put down the new flooring yet. And so as I'm looking at the floor, I'm looking at the the concrete that had paint splotches on it. But yeah, I'm leaning up against the ottoman. My head is on, that's where I came to, with my head on the ottoman, and all I can see is the floor. And then I'm aware that Steve is covering me with his whole body, as if protecting me from a landmine, which essentially that's what he's doing. And
Wow.
so from there on, time goes on. I'm granted a temporary restraining order, and it has to go before a judge to get a what's called a permanent protection order, but it's only permanent for up to 10 years. And most judges only grant 3 years.
Oh.
Maybe at the very, very most, under extreme circumstances, they might grant 5.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And but I went to legal aid for a lawyer to represent me in that case that went before the judge. It was a county issue because he lived in a different part of the county from us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how come it went before the county, and not the city of Springdale. Thank God, because Springdale is 500 years backwards on how they view men beating women in their home.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. That's a whole story that I don't want to get into because it pisses me off so much. So thank God the county, who has a clue.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Springdale, Arkansas. Fuck you. And how you handled that whole thing. You're a nightmare.
Yeah. So how long did your order last for?
Well, that's the beautiful part.
Something beautiful we could use right now.
We did not have to go before the judge. That legal aid attorney was so sharp, and the only person that my brother probably ever encountered that wasn't intimidated by him. And we're talking, my brother's like 6'1" or 6'2", and pretty buff. And this man can't be more than 5'6", 5'7", and not a big man at all.
Right.
You know, maybe 140, 45 pounds, 50 pounds soaking wet. But, you know, he's trying to talk my brother into just signing a 10-year order rather than making us go before the judge and hash it out in front of the judge. You know, and my brother's like saying, she should have known better than to yell at a grieving man. And he just keeps, that's his story. That's what he keeps trying to stick to.
That's narcissism.
And oh, yeah. And the lawyer, I did not come into my own house screaming, A. And B, I did not start screaming until he had me backed into a corner and there was nowhere for me to go because he's right here. The corner's right here. I'm up against it. And so, of course, fight or flight's going to kick in. And that's what
Right.
he was waiting for. That was his excuse to start throwing the punches. I know him. I know this person. I grew up with this person doing this kind of shit. He had never hit me quite that hard because I was always littler than I was then. But yeah, so the attorney, after 2 or 3 times of my brother saying this to him, and that's his only answer to, you know, him saying, would you please just sign this? You know, and my brother's only answer was, she should have known better than to yell at a grieving man. And the attorney gets real quiet, and he's looking up at him just sternly in the face, and he says, yelling is not a crime.
Right.
Punching somebody in the face is a crime. Now sign this. And guess what? He did. And I got a 10-year protection order.
Wow.
Right.
That's good. Now, your brother passed before the protection order was up, correct? He is no longer with us.
He is no longer on this planet. He can no longer hurt anybody else.
Thank the Lord for that.
Now, how did you feel when he passed? Because I know that, people that I know that are very close to me, when someone who abuses them, especially excessively, passes, they have a lot of mixed emotions, including happiness. So how did you feel? Because that's perfectly normal. I would be happy.
The very first thing that I felt was a sense of relief.
Yeah, and don't feel guilty about that at all.
I don't, because I had been living, this was in January, the very beginning of the year, 2021. He died on January 2nd, 2021. And the sheriff came to tell us, like the next day, I think it was, I guess they had a little bit of a process finding his next of kin, because he did not have a home. He was couch surfing at that time. So there was, he didn't really have anything on him when he went to the hospital. So it took him a while to dig through everything to find out who he was, who his next of kin was, and all that. And he died in the next county over, Benton County. And we live in Washington County still. And so all those, from 2018, the day that happened, till that day that we found out that he was no longer living on this planet, I had been living in constant high alert, waiting for him to have found out where we were, so that he could come and finish the job of that murder that I saw in his eyes that day.
Right.
That's what I had been living in every waking moment, and actually waking up out of sleep, living in. And probably that night was the best night of sleep that I'd probably gotten in years.
Oh, I can imagine. Now, was your mom still alive at the time that your brother passed?
Yes, she was.
What was her feeling on? I mean, was she grieving or?
Yes, but it was a real mixed bag for her.
Yeah.
Because she had never seen that person before. And I didn't know that she had never seen that person before. I mean, how hidden it so well from her, but he did.
What caused all this for him in the first place? Was he just wired wrong?
My dad did not do a good job of raising him. I'll just say that. And there was abuse that happened. Terrible abuse, bad, and merciless. So that what might have been part of it. But, looking back on the dynamics of our family, and who my dad was before having Daly, and who he became after having Daly, tells me that I actually, having had all the benefit of all this time to kind of back up through the many, many small pieces of the family picture puzzle, I believe that he saw something in my brother that scared the bejeebers out of him as a little guy. And he was trying very hard to mold and shape this person into somebody who wasn't that. And it just wasn't going to work the way he was approaching it.
Right.
You can't control someone's every thought, word, and deed. And he did try.
And,
not to his credit at all. So I'll give him that. I'll give my brother that. But everybody has a choice once they're out from under the abusive situation as to how they're going to carry on from that place forward.
Right. Well, and people who are that abusive, it's been my experience, they do hide it really well, and they make you out to be the crazy one and you out to be the one that was in the wrong. And then you question your own sanity, but people can do a really good job. Like hitting where bruises can't be seen is a real thing.
Yes.
Emotional abuse is a real thing. And sometimes just the terror of knowing that this person is still out there and could come back is way more traumatic than any abuse that you might get otherwise. I mean, that's so
there's a real disconnect for me between a preteen getting physically abused by a grown man. There's something that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and every incident that mom ever told to me happened when he was like in junior high and high school. She doesn't mention anything like that of anything like that when he was younger, like a little boy. He was getting to be a preteen, I think, and things like that.
Well, and if you think about it, that's when our personalities start to come online. That's when, really who we're going to be really starts to show and shine through and be developed. And, I mean, I would think as a parent that, if you see something scary like that in your child, you realize legally there's only so far you can go. I mean, there's only so much you can do. And at that time, I think that you probably didn't have the awareness and everything else. So you mean, I'm not excusing anything at all by any means.
I understand.
But, that could be a really scary time, especially if you know that someone is acting narcissistic and abusive and borderline psychopathic. And, as a parent, how do you manage that? Because in one way, like you said, your father was very afraid of him. How do you do that? And then, like there's always that thing, like don't hit girls. And so maybe he was kind of hoping like that wasn't
having a little girl around would. Yeah.
Or just that maybe he wouldn't cross that line, I mean, because when people's minds just go like that, it's a very scary thing. And, I am so sorry. So now that you're on the, like, because, your mom has passed, your brother has passed, the situation is over. Do you still find yourself being anxious in certain situations?
Yeah, and honestly, I'm still kind of a buzz with it a lot of the time, just for no reason.
Well, this is very healthy.
Still that buzz feeling that, I don't know how to explain it.
Adrenaline rushes, panic attacks.
Not so much attacks, but this feeling of that I could launch into fight or flight at any moment, but I don't quite go there. So,
well,
that makes sense.
When you've lived in an abusive situation for years, decades, your whole life, your body doesn't forget trauma, and it doesn't forget its response, and it always that becomes your default. So when you get in a situation where you get nervous, you automatically go back to that. And it doesn't matter how far, like what kind of abuse it was or who it was from. So when you get into a situation where it's maybe a little more crowded than what you like or whatever, because you've experienced that side of things, it's almost like it's hardwired into your body. So it's just further trauma. So what do you do in those moments? Do you breathe? Do you try to like disconnect from the situation? Do you just leave? Like, how do you manage that?
grit my teeth and keep going. No, I haven't known what else to do.
Right. Right.
You know, I'm on my 8th therapist right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I talked to my doctor recently about ketamine therapy.
What's that?
It's I have to do some more research on it myself. And there's a psychologist in the next town over, Fayetteville, that it's a supervised thing, and it's done through an IV, and a lot of people have had good results. Yeah, Zelda, it's like an anxiety attack coming on, but it never quite gets to the anxiety. When a trigger comes, of course, I'll start the screaming like I did when I was backed into that corner. But most of the time, I just kind of walk around. I would say maybe a little more than 50% of the time, I'm walking in that, and then there's maybe a 20 to 30% chance of the time where I could launch over into that, and then maybe a 20 to overlapping 30% of the time that I can make. I'm fine,
Mm-hmm.
as fine as I can be on this side of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I call it my new normal,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't get to go back to who and what I was before that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I had put nearly 20 years and 2,000 miles of distance between me and my brother when I moved to California. And I wouldn't talk to him for years sometimes. And the only time that I would see him or talk to him was when I would bring my mom to visit, you know.
So,
Ketamine is a very, very powerful, uh, intended for animals tranquilizer.
Yeah.
That
oh,
has to be done under the care of a doctor.
Yeah.
oh, and so so then like what, so it helps you, like it would stay in your system and help keep you calm then, or like you take that medication and then have like a therapy, like how does that?
I don't know. And that's what I've got to do is I've got to go to the consultation. It's a free consultation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's
Mhm.
interesting.
And I really, rather than do the research on Google, I wanted to hear it from the doctor's mouth,
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, of
right
course.
there, face to face. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
To someone that you want to be able to trust and want to be able to hold accountable if something does not work or go wrong.
right.
Now, is that addictive? This ketamine?
My doctor's well versed in my addiction
Mm-hmm.
situation, and I don't know if that's an aspect of it, but I feel like if that were a risk, she would have told me that risk, because she's
Okay.
very
Okay.
thorough. I have an excellent doctor who asks very good, very intelligent questions, is
That's
not afraid to do the research right then and there, you
sure.
know, with the tools that she has.
Good.
Yeah,
Well,
she's
I
a
hope
wonderful doctor.
I hope that it works for you. Like
Yeah,
it,
I do too.
and if you start it, like I think it would be something good to speak on when you know, kind of
Yeah,
see how it works for you, because
yeah,
it could be something that could be very helpful, you know.
yeah, yeah. So yeah.
You've done something. You've rendered me silent.
I'm
I have no wind in my lungs right now.
Yeah.
sorry, Steve.
No, 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 no. That's why we're here today.
Yeah.
We were meant to come on so we could help you today. Yeah, needing a meeting is not always about you giving us a meeting. It's about us
Mhm.
helping you with your meeting.
It's interesting that these things always come up on a Sunday, isn't it?
Well, you know, Sundays are typically a more spiritual day. I think things just kind of, you know, like
Makes sense.
wherever you're at in that, like I always say, you know, it doesn't matter who you worship. It's just kind of, I think inherently our bodies just kind of know that hey, this is something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's been so what ended up happening was, as time goes on, Debbie keeps telling me that he is just, over time he had turned it into hoarder land, the farm that my mom and dad scrimped and scrapped and saved. Scrimped and scrapped and saved.
Where's she? Hey, you look like the girl I used to know.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Where's she? Hey, you look like the girl I used.
What?
How are you doing? How are you doing, Karen?
Dizzy? Really dizzy?
I'm sorry.
I can't really focus, but I'm really dizzy.
Well, thanks for coming on and helping us because we need all the help we can get today.
Ketamine therapy usually runs it runs a specific amount of weeks, and what it does is it calms down all of the anxiety and panic and upset and trauma from your past.
Okay.
A friend of mine's son went through it, and he went to a couple different clinics. The first 2 times it didn't take. The third time he went to a different place, and it really, really took.
Okay.
So the main thing is that, like, when we were looking for the information the other night, Carol,
Yeah.
is that you find their success rate. That's the number one thing that you want to know, is their
Okay.
success rate on everything that's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
You don't want it to be like, you don't want to go to a place that has like a 50% success rate. You want to go to a place that has a higher success rate.
Okay.
I mean, he ended up taking his son down to Penn, to University of Penn, to one of
Okay.
their clinics.
Okay.
And it was like it can be a very long procedure. His son would go for 8 hours.
Ooh.
And yeah. And
Okay.
his son's really big, and he's 5'6", and he would have to basically try to carry his son out after it was finished.
Okay.
But he would do like 8 hours like every 2 weeks.
Okay.
But
Okay.
he's doing great.
So you cannot drive yourself there.
Right.
Mm-mm.
That's what, and my doctor had told me that actually. So yeah.
Yeah. Because ketamine I mean, he's basically, from everything, sounds like he's basically cured.
Yeah.
Because he's doing very, very well.
Yeah.
He had problems with like extreme pain from just the depression and all of the mental stuff. His body was in pain. He was tortured. So it helped him in the long run.
Okay.
Carol, do you and Steve talk about this now at all? Or
We do. We do. He has his own process with it. He said he didn't want to do this with me today. He was not in a good place to do it. So he's with his brother and they're trying to fix a 4-wheeler.
That's what he does. He fixes things.
He does. He fixes things, and he couldn't fix this one. Much as he tried, he
because
he
you
gave
can't get your hands on
monumental effort toward fixing it. He did.
Well,
you can't put your hands on trauma.
That's right.
I mean, I have the same.
Sure he has it too. I mean, he loves me.
Yeah, to see your wife go through that.
And he had to watch. He was coming into the room as the first punch landed. Can you imagine seeing your wife get punched in the face by your brother-in-law?
I can tell you, my husband would lose his ever-loving mind, and it would.
The only reason Steve didn't is because my mom was feet away from where the punches were being thrown.
Well, he's a better man than I am because I wouldn't have thought about anything.
Foremost in his mind was the CNA part of him that.
Right. I was going to say his medical training kicked in.
Yeah. Because, he has a switch, and he did not allow that switch to get flipped. But if he had allowed that switch to get flipped, he would not have stopped by any and every means available to him until my brother was in a wheelchair drooling for the rest of his life.
Right.
Yeah, he wouldn't have walked out of there if
No.
I mean, I don't know what it was like having your mother there, but God Almighty.
Yeah. So he has his own trauma
Right.
from it,
Right.
and we had the recurring trauma of our whole lives getting upended and uprooted, which maybe that's another video. I don't know if I'll get into that in this one. I want to get to that part of it.
Well, so you were talking about how your brother had kind of destroyed the house that your parents lived in.
Yeah.
What?
The house was okay. He either he had gotten the house okay by the time when the baby died, or he was keeping it okay because he wanted Debbie to come back.
Mhm.
He had told me that he wanted her back. And I'm like, oh God, no, please, no, please.
Right.
I don't want to tell you her stories because they're hers to tell,
Right. Right.
Right.
Well, we can imagine if what he did to you was anything like what he did to his spouse, which I'm sure it was, or worse.
Mm-hmm.
8 months old.
Mm-hmm.
That just does not compute.
It does not compute, does it?
Mhm.
Mm-mm. So yes, we got that emotions were running high,
Mhm.
but when my husband had left the room, he had gone in to get on his computer to verify that the funds from the GoFundMe had indeed been paid to the funeral home. And when he came back in to tell my brother this, that's when the punches started landing.
And you actually lost consciousness?
Yeah, I don't know for how long, but I came to. All I can tell you is I came to and I was down and I could see the floor and I'm like, oh, I'm down.
Mhm.
So I don't know how long that was. And Steve indicates that it was just maybe not even a full second, or maybe it was a second or two, or
No, but there's no mistake in coming back to consciousness. It's not like waking up from sleep.
Right.
It's coming back to yourself, trying to figure out where you are, who you are.
Having to orient myself where what yeah.
God, this is giving me
Yeah.
attack.
Yeah.
So how did you get your brother out of your mom's house? Because I know, like in Kentucky, they have squatters' rights, and it's really hard to get someone out. Was it really hard to get him out of your?
It was a whole legal process, and
Mhm.
our family attorney is also very astute, and he helped us get the process started of getting him ejected from the property. You have to do a legal ejection. It's not even a full eviction if they're not paying rent and you're not a landlord.
Okay.
And it had been his homestead for 50 years,
Right.
And so yeah, it had to go. We had to get the paperwork filed in the courts, and then once that part was approved, it had to be put into the hands of the sheriffs, and the sheriffs had to go and give the notice in person that
Mhm.
they had so much time to vacate.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that if they did not vacate that time, they would be in jail.
So did he vacate in time?
Yeah. In fact, he was out of there before the time period had lapsed, and he had abandoned his dog. And she was there for
Sounds like you needed to be in
4
jail
days
anyway.
before the neighbors even realized that he was gone and that Sugar was there by herself on that that huge place by herself.
Oh wow.
Before they knew to go over and start feeding her. And they were trying to coax her to come over to their house and live. They put the steak bones out that they normally put out for her, because
Yeah.
and she'd be like, thanks for the bone, and run back over because She had a place that was her place to patrol and protect. She's a Pyrenees. She's pure Pyrenees.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, she has to adopt you before she will adopt a new place.
Right.
And I knew that about that breed. So we had to move on to the farm to get her to adopt us so we could move her here to the place where we are now. But essentially, we sold the big farm that my mom and dad had scrimped and saved and scrapped and fought and, every nickel, every dime to pay off the mortgage on, and biting off more than they could chew acreage wise and money wise. But they just fell that much in love with the place.
Right.
It was their dream. And my brother knew it. And he just worked systematically to destroy the dream. Not in the house, but he would not let Debbie past the backyard. He would say he would literally physically barricade her from going back there to see his hoarders mountain that he had been doing back there. And he would just glower over her saying, "Back here is none of your business." And basically forbidding her to go back there. And after she left, it only got worse. There is so much broken glass on that ground there. There's no getting it up. You would have to do a scraping with a bulldozer several feet down to get it all.
A land mover, yeah.
I cleaned up with my bare hands 3 big barrels full of broken glass. And I didn't even scratch the surface.
Just from like trash that was back there?
You tell me what it was from. I don't know how a person can break that much glass.
Wow.
Could he have been shooting at bottles or something?
I don't know. A lot of it was flat glass. Some of it was round glass, but a lot of it was flat glass.
Hey, Christy.
No idea. Hi, you're not late. I was early, Christy. But I was talking about, you probably came at the right time, Christy, because I was going into my traumatic event with my brother. And so, yeah, that's what we're talking about today, because I needed a meeting about it. I woke up needing a meeting about it today. And so I went on an hour early. And so maybe you're just right on time. Hi, dog. So anyway, we still have Sugar, the dog. She took ownership of this place, and she knows it's hers. She doesn't have to answer to anybody. It's her place. She patrols it like it's her place, even at minimum of 16 years of age. She may even be 19. We've been trying to figure out how old she actually is, because brother and sister-in-law got her as an adult. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they had her in 2010 and maybe even 2007 when I visited. I visited in 2009. I visited there in 2007 and 2009 from California. It was when me and Mom would do our trips where we'd do a road trip together, and we'd drive out of Texas over to her friend Corky's in Shawnee, Oklahoma, then over to the farm in Dutch Mills, Arkansas, and then over to the relatives in Mississippi, my aunts, and there were no first cousins still left there at that time. And then sometimes to Tennessee to see the second cousins that we were very close with. They would come and visit us like at least once a year, sometimes twice a year.
Were any of them aware of what was going on to you?
Mm-mm.
Did your mom ever talk about it with you?
No, nobody knew. I didn't know that nobody knew until that day in 2018.
Oh.
As a little kid, I'm in this situation, and he hits me, and it's just so loud inside of me. How can they not hear this loudness inside of me. So I just assumed that my parents knew, because I was like an only child with 3 parents. He was that much older than me. And so I just thought everybody knew and they were okay with it. That's how I went through life as a kid. I didn't know they didn't know. That's what my mom said to me after things calmed down when my brother left our house. When Steve told him essentially he had to call the cops, and that's when my brother left. I did not know, when I was saying to him, I was not letting him get a word in edgewise. I was not giving him the satisfaction of his justification sayings that he always did. I was not letting him get a word in edgewise to me, period. And so I was just shouting, not letting an nth of a second get between the shouts of my statement to him about the heart patient sitting right there, and about my promise to myself, my vow to myself that I was never letting him touch me again. From as a little kid, I had promised myself as a little kid, okay, I have to be here and I have to go through this now to survive, because I don't have anywhere else to go.
What point, how old were you when you realized that wasn't normal behavior?
Pretty young. My first actual memory of him physically assaulting me, I have a lot of black spaces in my memory of my childhood.
Yeah, that's what.
The ones that I do remember where he was physically hurting me, or physically hurting an animal in front of me, or God knows whatever else he did to me. Those memories. What was your question? Sorry.
Your age, when you got the age of realization.
I want to say my feeling of my memory of that is in kind of somewhere between the ages of 7 and 9-year-old body. I had made that vow to myself that I was not letting not only him not touch me again, but no man when I was grown was going to do that to me. And guess what? No man has. That's how powerful those vows can be when you're a little
real men don't.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I speak for my species on that demographic. How you ever want to divide up the men category, the part where it says real man next to his name does not do that.
That's right. And I know, and I'm very aware of that. I'm hyper aware of that he's not that's why I say that in my description. Most men do not have any trouble not hitting their baby sister. My brother's not one of those men. He's just not. Yeah. So yeah, that all I can go on is my feeling of it, because I remember the vow very clearly. My head, I didn't know how it was not flying off of my body. And I could literally see stars. And as I was coming out of that, and I don't know if I was conscious or unconscious, I clearly remember making a vow right then and there that not only was he not going to touch me when I was grown, when I was big. Basically, I was saying to myself, when I'm big, he's not doing this to me anymore, and neither is any other man. When I'm big.
Was there ever a point where you left home and say went away to college or something where that didn't happen?
Yeah, I was 19. I was already I had gone to cosmetology school right out of high school. And so as soon as I graduated from cosmetology school and passed my license exam and got my license, I moved out into Fayetteville and had my first apartment. And it was so close to my work, I could walk to my work, but the salon where I worked. And so, yeah, at the age of 19, I was out of there.
Right.
Look back. Yeah. Never
So
look
then
back.
once you got into your, adult life, what was the residuals of this? Because there's always residuals, like
Well,
what?
I can't really answer that too clearly because, I started drinking at the age of 19 and doing drugs and, experimenting.
Mhm.
And, I don't know at what stage of that the addictive part of me kicked in and I
Mhm.
became dependent on it.
Right.
I don't know at what stage that happened,
Mhm.
but I was young and just having fun for the
Mhm.
first time in my life, And so that's what I knew at that age. And then, I'm at 28 years of age going into rehab, a size 0 to 2 at the very, very most, when I go into rehab.
Mhm.
Because at the end, all I did was drink coffee, eat Keebler cookies, and drink whatever my drink of choice was at the time. I'd change it up,
Mhm.
and whatever drugs happened to be around that sounded good. I never bought my own drugs. I didn't like drugs enough to buy them.
Yeah, I think
No.
some meth sounds good today. Let's get some of that.
Yeah. So I was one of those. That's why I had a hard time coming to grips with being an alcoholic, because I was just a party girl
Mhm.
Yeah,
in my own mind.
I identify with that completely.
So
There's nothing wrong with it until there's something wrong with it.
there's something wrong with it. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how
So
did
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, how did your mom feel when you had to sell the place?
She was 100% backing me up every step of the way.
Good.
She's like, yes, we're doing this.
Mhm.
He
That's
does
good.
not deserve this place. I'm not giving it to him. She had
Mhm.
basically given it to him, just not in deed.
Right,
It
right,
was
right.
still, it was still in her name and in the trust's name.
Mhm.
Her name,
Mhm.
she was still the legal owner, in other words. And that's the only way that she had not. In every other way, it was his until then, until that happened, until she learned what he had been doing to her little baby girl.
Mhm.
In 2018.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel when your mom was like, "We did not know this was happening"? Did that shock?
I'm like, how did you not know?
Mhm.
Because like I said, as a little kid, it's screaming on the inside of me so loud.
Right, right.
You just think that as you're a little kid, you don't know how to intellectually process these things. It's screaming so loud on the inside of me. How does everybody not know?
Right.
How does the whole world not know?
Mhm.
As a little kid.
So did you come to a point where you like forgave your mom and like you guys had a conversation, or did it just kind of, I didn't know and I'm sorry, and then you just kind of move on?
I was probably in, part of the last stages of, unfortunately, the last couple of years of mom's life,
Mhm.
grappling with that.
Mm.
And not so much forgiveness of her, but just forgiveness that dad kept her so wound up with all that she had, with 2 hours of carpooling and a full 8-hour hard day at work, coming
Mhm.
home and being a farm wife and coming home and cooking and doing the farm stuff and doing all that, or doing whatever had to be done with my schooling or whatever, keeping her head in such a spin with so much busyness that she could not have known.
Right.
That is why now that mom is gone, I have come to the place where dad does not get a pass,
Mhm.
because he retired from military. He had taken his retirement early.
Okay.
Sent her off to work so that he could farm and quote unquote raise the baby. And he did not want, he knew because he didn't want to know.
Wow.
That's where I'm at right now with him.
Once you let a child establish those behaviors, it's very hard to stop it, to correct them after you've let them go for so long. And it sounds like your dad just didn't hold your brother accountable for anything.
Well, it sounds like your brother was like a psychopath or something. I mean, I'm not being disrespectful.
I know Google's no place to go and diagnose anything like
Right.
that. But if you Google psychopath, he checks all those boxes.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Well, and that's something that you can't, like, no one can do anything about. I mean, and it's a very dangerous situation. Like, gosh, I'm so sorry.
Sugar.
Oh, that's not my sugar. That's someone
Oh
else's.
no,
sugar.
that's Mikey. Can
Oh,
you hear
that's
him? Let me shut the door. I think he's barking at the little neighbor dog. Hold on.
So Megan says, Carol, for me, it took a long time to forgive my own mom. I had to separate mom from who she is as a person to find my own sense of forgiveness. Still hard. Big hugs, Carol. Thank you, Megan. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with mom, but I know that was in the mix those last couple of years of her life when I'm still not feeling like myself. When that happened, when my brother did that to me, it felt like it had changed me on a molecular, cellular level.
It did.
And I have never been able to recover the person that I was before that happened.
That's why you travel up to anxiety when you get in certain situations. It's muscle memory. It's the collective unconscious. It's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to tell him to go get right with himself.
Put his manners back in.
Yeah, you know,
That's the first thing I thought of.
So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do. I'm like, you get right with yourself. What's wrong with you?
I say that to my animals sometimes. What is wrong with you? You're so mean to each other sometimes.
Right.
Oh, like, what?
Frank was sleeping on the sofa this afternoon.
You need
and
to let
Elliot
us know
was
if
wide
they
awake and jumped up and woke him up and pissed him off. And
You need to let us know if they start answering, well, Carol, here's what's going on. You need-
I mean, I think it's just a thing, like, especially ranch and farm girls. You just talk to the animals like they're human.
I do that all the time, and I'm not on a ranch. I'm in an
I
apartment.
totally do. I totally do.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one, Megan.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you. You know, oddly enough, I mean, I came out of a cult and I've had cult recovery, since 2009. I've had this since 2018. And, my husband said that our first year of marriage, I very much reminded him of Stockholm syndrome, like the state that I was in, and so it's, oddly enough, watching SPTV has helped me process a lot of this. And that's how I've been able to come back to a little, that among other things, including
Surprisingly
therapy.
enough, I mean, it helped me too.
Right on.
That's where I attached myself because I understood the trauma.
Yes.
You understand the trauma, the confusion, even the language. You know what I mean? Like if you're being abused or you're in a certain thing, you start to center in on tone and tone and on different tones they use, different actions they use, different words they use, that
Yeah.
nobody else would ever understand it, but you
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So even though Scientology has its own language, it's still language that we can understand.
And see, it wasn't a triggering language for me because that's not the language my cult spoke.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mine was this weird offshoot of Christianese. You know,
Yeah.
so Pentecostal at that.
But you can still put the association in there. You can still associate it. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I tried, I did everything I could to recover through every SPTV show on air,
Yeah.
and you know you still don't have an answer.
Right.
You know?
No, you can't make sense of it. You can't make sense of why somebody would want to do that, be a cult leader in the first damn place, you know, and why they would want to keep it up in the second damn place.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
such
high
a
maintenance, man.
Yeah. That's only feeding your pig.
Yeah. 2 ways we can deal with sadness. 1, hermit and fester bitterness. Megan, I've
She's
been
on
in
fire
one
today.
for years, since 2018. Just now coming into the wanting to choose option 2, love and preserve. Yeah. Only just coming to that, starting to come to that. You know, the hardest thing that's been to forgive my brother for since he died is dying. Because on the one hand, I was scared of him coming back and wanting to finish the job. On the other hand, I was hoping he was going to come back and want to finish the job because I had all kinds of plans.
You didn't get any kind of closure. You know.
You know?
Most of the time, though, when you're in an abuse situation like that, no matter what it is, you don't get closure. There is no closure.
There is no closure
It's
from that.
always open-ended.
Always open-ended.
Like
Almost by
my son's
design, you
father
know?
beat the daylights out of me, and
I'm
what did
sorry.
I get out of it? I got my son. You know
Oh,
what I
If
mean? I got my son, but
yeah.
that doesn't leave it as a closure because he's asking me questions like blah 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 about his father,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it leaves it all wide open, and you live with it the rest of your life. There's just no way to escape it.
No
do
way.
you think that you would feel better having had him come to an epiphany and apologizing? Do you think that would have made any difference to you?
Well, I can't think that way because I know he would never have.
Right. Okay. All
That.
right. That's fair. That's fair.
That's just not in the equation at all. No possibility of that. Not at 66 years of age.
No.
Mm-mm.
You know, and my sister-in-law had been warning me that he was getting worse in his head and crazier. And so maybe there was some dementia also in the mix, you know, which wouldn't be unreasonably out of the question, you know.
Was he a drinker?
No, he wasn't. That's the weird part. Now, he was a pot smoker from hell, but no, not a drinker. Every once in a while, he'd have a beer, crack open a beer with somebody. That's it. Isn't that crazy? That was just him. That was who he was.
Usually.
When you're,
Go ahead, Christy.
I was gonna say, when you're mentally that unbalanced, like, it's probably a good thing he wasn't a drinker because it would have been so much worse the other side. But
That's
I mean,
what
like
I
you
was
said,
thinking.
that's just who he was at a molecular level, and that's hard to reconcile in yourself, especially if you are a kind person and you're dealing with someone that is I'm not saying this was your brother, like, but psychopathic, malignant narcissist who just would do these awful abusive things. Like, how do you sort that out in your own head? And, you know, like, and how do you come to that for yourself? Because you're not coming to it for them,
Right.
but you're coming to it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I read something, Sandra Bullock, whew, that came from a real personal place. Hold on. I read something Sandra Bullock said, and it said, they knew what they did to you.
Yeah.
And they chose to do it to you anyway. And you will never get an apology. And that was the most profound thing for me, because when somebody comes from a place that is that vile,
Yeah.
really that vile,
Yes.
you, and as a compassionate, empathetic person, you have to figure it out. And the only way that you can kind of figure it out is that they're just so off that, you know, like there isn't anything that can be done. And I think what makes it so hard to deal with is that they can appear normal to
people. You could do something or say something that was so completely devastating, and then he got back into the room like nothing happened, just so happy and pleased with himself.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like, and other people, like what I dealt with was other people like respected this person. Other people thought that this was a great person. Everybody thought that like nothing would ever happen, and trying to get somebody to believe you was hard. And I remember this. And when somebody finally does believe you and then they show up to defend you, then that person gaslights the other person and then turns it around and you look like you're crazy. And then you really do spend a good part of your life looking at it as, am I crazy? Am I wrong? Is this really what happens? And so that bitterness does happen because there is a part of you that wants to do to them what they have done to you.
Yeah. Well, not only was I waiting for him to, you know, do something physical, I wasn't through punishing him legally. I was looking for, I was like, you know, he kept telling people he was going to sue me because I got him kicked off of the farm. And I'm like, oh, please sue me. Oh, pretty please sue me.
Right.
You know, I was stronger on the legal thing because, you know, you can do stuff with legal, you know, that will really fuck somebody up.
Oh, yeah.
And I was pretty, please sue me. Please take me to court.
Yeah, please call the cops on me.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough, you know, because it's hard. We all have it in us. Mm-hmm. Like, no matter how nice and kind you might seem, like, we all have that streak that's like, please come for me.
Yeah. You guys,
please.
I'm trying to be as empathetic as possible, but I just don't understand this.
Well, and I think it's something that you can't understand. I mean, when you're dealing with someone who is as emotionally damaged and you've not ever dealt with someone like that, it is hard to understand. And it's hard to understand how a man can behave that way when you've never seen a man on that level behave that way. Yeah. Because the thing is, a man, and here's the thing. These men are very weak. And I'm not a man basher. I love men, but these men are very weak and they are not going to let another man see that side of them because they know that a strong, real man
My brother never picked a fight with somebody that was going to be a fair fight.
Right.
Ever.
Right. Or someone that would set him in his place. You know, I mean, it's done in such a way that it is so condescending, you know, and there's even like levels of expectation that they expect you to behave at that are unattainable, but they don't hold themselves to the same thing. So a typical guy like yourself, Steve, is never going to see that because he won't let you see that.
I want to speak to that too. I did not know that person that could say, oh, please sue me. Oh, please come back. was I did not know that was in me
Right.
until that happened in 2018.
Yeah. Well, and
And that
then
was one of the bigger shocks, is that I had to learn that was in me.
Yeah.
I never wanted to know that I was capable of thinking and being that way.
Right.
That's not who I ever wanted to be on my worst or even best day.
It isn't somebody that you come across as either.
You know? And I resented him for doing that to me as a person. You know, robbing me of the person I knew myself to be before that happened.
Right. And Megan, you're right. Narcissistic abuse leaves really deep emotional and relationship strains, and you don't ever come back from that. You can heal, I believe, to a very good point, but with me, I still have my husband pays for, you know, I mean, there's still things where I just come at him and I'm like, and he's like, whoa, your habit rage, take it on, you know, but it's
I love
hard.
that.
I know. But you know, but when you find that in you, when you find that part of you that is like, I could cross a line and be that vengeful. It's sort of scary because
very scary. Are you kidding me? It's frightening. Oh my God.
Well, and you've been conditioned and deprogrammed and reprogrammed and brainwashed and had your head turned into a soup sandwich that you don't think you can do anything right, let alone anything like that. And then it's like this angry beast just rises up inside of you, and when it unleashes you, you just sort of stand back and you're like, how, you know,
where did this person come from?
Well,
oh my God.
And then there's a part of you that takes over because you're like, I can do to you the same thing you did to me. And really the strength comes from, I'm not pointing at you, the strength comes from choosing to not do that. And I think, and this is something I just thought of, and Carol, you were talking about a few Sundays ago, choice. You didn't have a choice. And I think what's really coming through for you that I would recommend you journal about and think on is this is a deep inner child wound about choice. You didn't have, this is like the most basic, like, you know, like on the that pyramid that the safety, what is it, Maslow's pyramid of something.
Yeah,
like
of basic human needs.
Yes. Your most basic human need was sabotaged at a very early age, and that just made you feel like you just didn't have choices over anything. So now that you are healing and coming to this, and things are, you've got distance from it, I think that's where a lot of that comes from. I'm sorry, do you want me to stop?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, you know, how I wasn't getting here sooner is, I don't know.
Well, like you said, you had a medication change, and you know, and I think you're just kind of energetically coming online in a different way, and this stuff is all because, you know, you can only shove stuff down so long before it just says, you know, nope, sorry, you know what, you have to deal with me, and you're going to deal with me one of two ways. You're going to work through this and you're going to figure this out on your own and how to go forward and be a better human for it, or you're going to go the other way. And you know, and I think a lot of it is,
when I discovered that part of myself, I knew I didn't want to stay there. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to not be that person at the time. And I did not know that how to not be that person for a very long time.
Right. Well, and you know,
stay there.
And here's the thing, like, you know, a lot of people think that anger is bad and it's wrong, but anger, when it's justified, is really good. I mean, and I'm not going to get preachy. We're not going in the weeds with this, but even Jesus flipped over tables in the temple because why? He was
You're
righteous.
desecrating my father's house.
Right.
Yeah.
He was righteously angry. So it is okay to be angry, but when you have been raised that your anger is not okay, or it breeds a wrath of like really horrible things, you don't have permission inside yourself to do that. And then a lot of these things raise their heads through really as like it starts off as one thing, just doesn't really seem connected, and then you start and and this is the most basic like energy work and chakras. Like this is your root chakra. This is like your ability to face, your ability, and all of that was, and but then there's a part of you that when that does show up, you're like, okay, I don't want to be this because then that makes me like this. And then you start not liking yourself because then you have that in you. And it's really hard to work through. I mean, it really is, because you really have to go through it, and you have to allow yourself to feel that. But you also have to, what are you going to do with that? So you felt it. Now, what are you going to do with it? And how are you going to process it? And, and it's a lot. And these are deep things. And the thing is, these are old things, because these are going way back to when you were 6, 7, 8 years old,
maybe even younger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just as remember.
Mm-hmm. I'm doing. Go ahead, Chrissy. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just saying it's very old. Very old.
I by the way, if it helps you feel any better, Carol, you're speaking to a fellow snotter. When I cry, I snot up.
Me too. Join the club.
Right on.
And that's my. You didn't get to choose any of those circumstances, but we can choose our tribe. And this tribe is about surviving.
Yeah.
Again, do you guys believe in closure, or do we find it for ourselves? I believe ultimately you have to find it for yourself.
Yeah.
Because the people who really hurt you,
give you closure. Are you kidding?
Right. And it's hard to reconcile that in yourself, because especially as little kids, say you're sorry, and when those really big things happen, and in your heart that that's not coming, and I'm an ugly crier too. Like, I make Kim Kardashian's ugly cry look like I mean, it's bad.
Oh, do you know what Kim Kardashian's stylist name is?
I have
Steve
no idea.
Molesky.
Oh,
really?
Exact same spelling and everything.
That's great.
I'm not really a fan of the Kardashians. I've just seen her ugly cry a few times. I'm like, oh, please.
I'm embarrassed that I know that, but I Googled my own name one time and he came up.
Hey.
You didn't.
Traumatic brain injury. You know what? I don't know. He did play football.
But he was doing that before he started football.
Yeah, and he was a Boy Scout. He was an Eagle Scout to be honest, and he was a competition swimmer as a young guy. So it's possible. It's possible.
The Eagle Scouts generally don't suffer brain trauma. They're off.
My dad used to say, he was a scout leader. He said those boys could tear up an anvil.
That's good.
I mean, there's a possibility in any of those things, or even as a little bitty guy, he could have had a traumatic brain injury. That's a possibility.
You can fall out of the grocery cart as you're a kid. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think any kind of abuse is really difficult. And when I was going through it with my kids' dad, now that my kids are older, they're asking questions, especially one of my daughters. And there's just a lot, like, there are things that I don't tell them because at the end of the day, that's their dad. And I mean, they do have a good relationship with him. I'm fortunate in that way. But it's hard. It's really hard. And I mean, Megan, my husband, literally, I'm serious. He will look at me. I will tell you, my biggest triggers are money, because I was not allowed to have any, and people thinking I'm stupid. And those two things are the fastest way, man, you ever want to see my little angry habit rage come out. Like, that's it. And my husband will literally look at me and be like, I'm not him. And that's what he says. And then that's the moment where I stop and I'm like, oh, but it doesn't matter how much I've tried to heal it or how much I've tried, because I'm very like intellectual and I process things and I want to understand it and I want to pick it apart. And I just know that is just there. And
why is it always up to the victim to do the right thing?
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
That is I'm glad somebody's asking that question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is. And I think it's because the abuser is not, I think they're missing that part of them that makes them understand that what they're doing is wrong. I think it is not there. Like, I truly believe that part of their mind or soul or brain or whatever it is just
something's not firing right.
Yeah.
I feel powerless. I feel powerless to even speak on this.
Well, it's something that you want to feel powerless. Like, I mean, I wish that no one ever had to know this.
Yeah, I do
like,
too.
No one ever had to.
I wish you didn't have to be in that position of,
and Megan, it is really awful when your sanity is and your reality is questioned, and it's hard to trust people. And and Carol, just like you with your brother, I mean, it's your sanity gets questioned. And then it's almost like you get mad at yourself because you allowed yourself to get to the point where your sanity was questioned, because you knew at some point you were sane. I mean, well, maybe, you were very young when that happened, but it's terrible.
My wife has got a lot of tolerance for a lot of things, but the only thing I know for a fact is I should not criticize her driving.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the, if I want to get into it, that's the one place I can go.
Megan, I think when a man really loves you, I really believe that he finds the patience inside of himself to understand you, like, and just understand, like Michael says, you're my kind of crazy. Okay, rock on. somebody likes my crazy. But
and I'm thinking about how good Steve is for you.
Yeah. He is.
And and that's beautiful. And really, I think one of the hardest things is I have a lot of respect for men who are with women who have been really badly abused, because they need more love than anybody else, and more understanding and patience. And I think it's a
very humanly possible.
Yes. Because like Steve doesn't understand how, and I'm sure your Steve and my husband doesn't understand how, and Megan, your partner, but all they know is I love this woman and we're gonna whatever it is. And I'm sure, Carol, you are extremely grateful that you have him. And
I am very grateful. I don't know where I'd be.
He seems like he's able to put it in reverse quick enough to catch you when you fall. That's how I see him.
I'll have to ruminate on that a minute, because I guess I'm not really picturing what you're.
Oh, well, I mean, if you get to that, when you talked about getting to your edge of anxiety, I'm sure he's figured out how to help you out of that instead of.
You know what? I don't think he does it on purpose. I think he just.
I think it's a default switch with him. That's what I mean.
Yeah, because he'll start singing silly songs that just make me just lose it. That's how he does it. He keeps me laughing.
Well, you can't be angry when you're laughing, right? I mean, it's really hard to be like, you're a horrible person,
Yeah.
Megan,
all I have is funny now. That's all I'm like Chandler Bing. That's my thing. All I am is funny.
Well, Michael's funny and sweet, but Megan, I like that. And I heard something the other day. Instead of triggers, what are your glimmers?
I love
something that instead of triggers, happy things.
Yeah.
So, Carol, what would that be for you? What is something that you think about that makes you really happy?
One time I took a trip to the Sierra Nevadas by myself.
That's right.
And I was in the cult at that time, but I was quickly on my way out of it. I would be out of it within less than 2 years when I did this. It was in February of 2008, and I ended up leaving in October of 2009. Or no, September of 2009. And there had just been a heavy snowfall. And but when I got into the Sierra Nevadas, they had just opened up some of the roads into the Sierra Nevadas. And I'll tell you, just being out in that, oh my God, like I would pull off the side of the road and overlook this amazing like mountain with a canyon in there. And
like God put his thumbprint on that part of the earth. You
could not hear the sound of any machinery of any kind. All you could hear was nature.
Nice.
Oh, that was amazing. Things like that. Those are my glimmers.
Yeah. What about you, Karen? Karen, you've been quiet. What's your glimmer?
I don't even know.
You don't know something that makes you happy?
I want to take you fishing.
You're taking me fishing?
I'm taking you fishing.
Okay. Where are we going?
That's not a glimmer for me.
Not a glimmer
go
for me either.
fishing.
I'm just wondering why I'm going fishing.
Because it's my glimmer.
Oh, okay, it's your glimmer. So yeah. Oh, I did tell you I would take you fishing. Didn't I say that?
Yeah.
We would go fishing together. Yeah,
yes.
See? I'm going fishing with Steve.
There you go. Let us know how that goes. We want pictures.
Yeah.
Actually,
oh my.
Actually, like my glimmers are my friends.
Yeah. Right on.
You know,
Christy, I'll tell you something. If you've caught any of the trauma that I've just been talking about, there is no way your trauma can be too much for me. I'm just going to put that out there.
You weren't with the right person, Christy. That whoever you were with was not the right person.
And if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here.
Yeah, we're all here.
We're all here for you and for that. It's not too much. We've all lived through. There's at least 3 of us here who have lived through unbearable, unspeakable trauma.
Without a doubt.
And I'm happy to hear yours.
Yeah. And
they are not
part of abuse, right? Is feeling like you're not worthy of other people's love. You know, that's part of
Janet Jackson hat is my glimmer.
Oh, I love that. Did you see that? Quiet girl, Karen's Janet Jackson hat. Says Karen's Janet Jackson hat is my glimmer.
I know you're all looking at me like I'm retarded for laughing. I'm like, no, you gotta see this.
I didn't even see it. I'm like, I'm sorry. My vision's like really bad right now.
That's okay. No. So your Janet Jackson hat makes someone happy in this world.
It does. It
Candy-
makes me
Candy-
happy.
Candy hit that one
I
right
put
on
it
the
on
head.
one day, and I was going to my psychiatrist appointment. Nurse was taking me, and I walked out of my room. They have on a pair of stretchies and this big cardigan, and I have on my hat. And he looks at me and he goes, "I'm taking Janet Jackson to the therapist." I'm like, "Yeah,
See, I don't have a hat. That's
well,
why
get one."
that's why I put on my wig. I was like, this is as close because I seen Carol's really cool hat, and I was like, oh, I love that. I need one. So I thought, well, I'll just that'll be my hat.
Yeah, you're putting
This
on your
is
wig
my
for your hat. No, you have to
1930s
put on
mob boss hat.
your beanie you had on last week.
Oh, I love me a good beanie. I tell you
And I
what,
love me a good hat party, Megan.
Oh,
Christy, I want to thank you for listening, sincerely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're here for you for that very same thing. I will listen. I will be there. I'll cry with
Message.
you. Whatever.
If you need a man's point of view, or if you're more comfortable with one of the ladies, that's fine too.
We're all here.
yeah.
That's
I
right.
have a hat.
You can
See?
choose
I
our
got my
tribe.
hood.
All right, so we've all got our head
Yeah,
covered.
but not me. I can't do it right
100%,
now.
Andy.
I do one of these
Yeah, we
things
weren't-
because I
we
have no
weren't
hair.
excluding
So
you,
like
Kim.
when I
Nobody's
get like
excluded
when I
here.
really need to think, I push my hood back. Like I have hair.
I love that.
Hair.
You look like a nun
I know,
now.
don't I though?
Sister Karen, can we have
Sister
lunch
Karen.
now?
Sister Karen Rose.
You want to come in today, Megan?
I do. I look like I'm wearing a habit. Oh my god.
My
And anybody
Lemmy,
else who wants to come in. Hey, Lemmy. Hi. I'm so happy to see you. It always brightens me up when you show up.
I do look like a nun. But it's
All right.
He-
also like
There's
a neat
enough room
thing.
for
he was holding an 8-foot sign in the weather yesterday.
What?
Sister Karen.
He was holding a big sign
Oh.
yesterday.
All right. If anybody wants to come into the meeting room, that link that I just posted, we'll get you in.
I'll bail if somebody needs me to. If Lemmy or whoever wants to come in, I can bail.
For everyone.
My oldest son's looking at me like I've lost my mind for wearing my 1930s mobster
I
fedora.
like it though.
Fedoras are good. I like it. You know.
I do like them.
Yeah.
You fit in with the mafia quite well, Steve. Granted, be the Polish
Yeah.
mafia because Molesky.
Yeah. Yeah. We give them money instead of robbing them.
Megan, are you on the Needing a Meeting Facebook page by chance?
222 cystic fibrosis.
Let me wait till this is done.
It depends on what plan you have, Megan.
Nice.
Do you have StreamYard? Okay, that's fine. Let me. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. This was very healing for me today.
I hope
glad.
so.
It was. I mean, I feel like some of that tightness I get in my chest with the trauma and the anxiety, it's not there right now.
I feel like I was trying to eat corn on the cob without thumbs today.
You're allowed. You're allowed, Steve.
No, I mean,
No, the cool part is, right?
Hi, Charlie.
Is that
Hi,
you're
Charlie.
sitting with
Welcome.
us and you're trying to understand something you don't understand.
Yes.
And that takes a man with a big heart and a big mind to try to comprehend how other men can treat women as cool as us the way that they did.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
There is no way to understand it.
Mhm.
There's no way for you to understand it. But see, you could have bailed, you could have jumped out, you could have said, I'm out of here. But you stayed and you listened.
I took 3 Tylenol listening to this.
Good. But
Oh,
the thing is, you sat to listen, to open your mind, to try to understand and try to get a grip of something that is so utterly impossible for a lot of men to understand.
100%.
Because not every man is going to turn around and hurt a woman, whether it is a boyfriend, a brother, a father, an uncle, a cousin. It doesn't matter. Everybody is on the same baseline.
Yeah.
And you have to
Thank you.
wonder where these people are different from you.
That's what. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Where is
Steve,
the disconnect?
But Steve, the
Yeah.
thing is, it's a chemical thing. It's a mindset thing. It's an anger thing. It's a mental health thing. It's all these different things all combined.
Wow.
You know, and you don't need to take it all in and go, well, I'm not like that. I don't get this.
Thank
No,
you, Megan.
and walk away. It's the man that sits around and waits to listen to all the stories, that takes his
Yes.
time to try to understand and conceive how somebody can be like this, and listen to
Yes.
horrid stories and still
Yeah.
sit there and still listen and still try to be comforting and understanding and ask questions. It's the man that picks up and walks away that wants nothing to do with it,
That's
that
easy.
doesn't want to
Yes.
know.
Sound familiar, Christy?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's the truth.
Walking away is easy.
Yeah.
You know, there's moments when my problems or my issues become too much for Rich, and he will walk away, but I know he's doing that to save himself from the moment. Okay? But
oh yeah, no, I get that.
But at the same time, I do want to tell him about the abuse. I want to tell him about all the things that are wrong. I just know that he's dealt with his own stuff in his own life.
As a young man, I would have never gotten in a relationship with the 4 of you, 3 of you, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah. And there's no way I would ever blame you for that. I didn't think that I would marry again. I was married when I was younger, quite a bit younger, and divorced by the time I was 25.
Oh.
No, 24. I was 24 when I got my divorce. And yeah. And I wouldn't have been able to blame a soul for never even trying to think about being in a relationship with me, much less marrying that.
When you said Steve wouldn't have given you a second look if you were still drinking, gave me a little comfort for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey there.
It's hard to wear a hat when you...
Maybe I should just go join.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, Christy.
There'll be, you'd get to the door and they'd be like, "You want to do what?"
Well, I could do this.
Now you're just like a looter.
Well, no, I'd look like a Muslim, wouldn't I? Like if I put it up like this.
Yeah. Well,
no,
and
I can't do that. I don't want to join all those people over there. No.
Well, and Christy, you know, you're never going to understand why they're that way. I mean, the only thing that you can do is just understand that it is a chemical thing. It's a biological thing in their brain. And the most important thing that I would say to you, and the thing I want you to write down and make into a mantra for yourself, is it's not your fault. You did not do this. Your man picker is not broken. Like, I'm serious. You can feel that way. You know, you can feel
that's
like,
perfect,
man, you know, but it is not you. You know, some things in life, you know, that's a cop out. But in this instance, really journal and work on understanding that this isn't you.
And it wasn't your fault.
No, and these guys
Nothing
know.
about it was your fault. I know
Well,
you can know that intellectually, but getting it in here to where it's a
Right.
part of your woven into the fabric of you.
That
Mhm.
14-inch drop is a long way.
Sometimes
Well,
it is.
and the one thing, narcissists are like the ultimate predator. It's kind
Yeah.
of like that scene in Twilight. Okay, I'm gonna go back, but where Edward is talking to Bella and he's like, "I'm the ultimate predator because everything about me is designed to draw you in from the way I look to the way I smell." Well, what you need to understand about a narcissist is they don't have their own personality, which is why they let you talk about yourself all the time, and then
Yeah.
they pick out little things, and
Yeah.
then and then they become that. So then it becomes
Yeah.
too good to be true. So that way, when it does happen and that mask drops,
Yeah.
then you are shocked and
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yep. That's
And
exactly my brother too. He
Mhm.
never had it doesn't seem like he ever had a thought of his own or something that came from within him. It was always somebody said that and that sounds cool, and he'd be a
Yeah.
parrot.
I don't know. Back a few comments. Christy said they. I don't know how they can do that, and that physically hurts me to be a part of that, or not a part of the group, but associated with that group.
Yeah.
You're not.
But you're not.
You're
I
not.
mean, just because
Because
you're a man.
women are capable of that too. Women are
Yeah.
Yes, very much
Well,
so.
and I wanted to touch on that because Lemmy, I will say, oh God, he would not be thrilled with me, but my husband he had some really not nice women too. And I tell you what, when we got together, we were both broken. I didn't trust men. He didn't trust women. It was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. And I've seen what a bad woman can do to a good man. And it is just as devastating as
Yes.
what a bad man can do to a good woman.
Well-
So it's not one-sided. And Lemmy, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry you went through
Right.
that. Like, I wanted to validate and acknowledge that for you because it happens to men.
Yeah.
It
And
really does.
you two as broken things came together and made one whole thing.
We're kind of like that Japanese thing where you take the broken pot and you put it together with gold. We got a lot of cool designs. There's like some word swirlies in there. Megan, yeah, it just kind of is. I think, and it's good that we as women and as men understand that there are good people out there, and it can be hard. It can be hard to, especially when it's been just kind of like one thing after another, to see the positive, but it's there. They're there.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you're so you have so much muck on you, it's hard, you can't see it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
I mean, how many movies do we see where, a guy's freaking out because the woman's a narcissist and his friend's trying to tell him she's a narcissist, and you know what I mean?
I
Like, the
just don't.
labels
I guess I
are
don't
being
see that
brought
as a
forward
woman's.
now more than they ever were.
Yeah.
Where it used to always be men, 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 and now they're showing women
Yeah.
the same way.
Yeah.
well,
know?
look
But
at
that's the reality.
JD.
It's a reality because there's executives that are in their ivory towers that are women that are able to do whatever they want to men. So yeah, you see men abuse women, but you also see women abuse men now.
Yeah, you do.
Well,
and that's
and
always been too. That's always been. That's nothing.
I think it's more I don't think anything is more traumatic than anything else. It's all traumatic. But I went to high school with somebody whose wife was not nice to him. I mean, he would lift up his shirts and I would see bruises of fists. And I think, and you look at JD and AH, right? Like, look at how vile she was to him. It is a real thing. And I think it's sad that one human could do that to another human.
It is very
Just
sad.
in general.
The initials went right over my head.
Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Oh.
I didn't know if like YouTube would like flag it if you said it, but I think if you just slip it in there real quick, it's
I
No,
think we're-
she's
I
in
think
far
no,
enough
no,
that
no.
they won't flag you.
okay.
Yeah, we're far enough in that I don't think they're going to sit through a 2-hour video to flag us.
Right.
Punched me in the face on our
We're not
first
monetized
date.
anyway, and I don't see any reason why they would have to take this down.
No,
Dude, why did you go on a second date with her?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt me as much as it hurt her. Well, so what, man? She punched you on your first date.
Damn.
Oh my God, that doesn't compute either.
It doesn't.
No.
None of you seem like punchers.
I mean,
But I bet you could if you had to.
yeah, it's and it's tragic. Gosh. Well,
Did you deserve it, Lemmy?
He said he was drunk.
No, I mean,
I was
was
trying
he
to
out of
highlight.
hand? Like, was she trying to like punch him to bring him back to life? What?
is that like the slap them if they get out of line? It's just
Oh, my
Well,
goodness.
it's just a question. It's just a question.
Believe it or not, I was quiet and boring when I was drunk.
Oh, okay.
What?
What else I wanted to say about this is my wife had to relearn how to act after I got sober too.
Oh, wow.
We had to kind of switch dynamics a little bit, and like she had to like gradually let go of the decision making and give it back to me because that's the way she wanted it. I mean, she
Right.
makes all the decisions anyway, but I mean, if it's something big, she'll at least consult me. But I mean, she had to learn how to deal with a sober guy.
Wow.
And I can say something that'll crack up a whole room, and she'll be like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Lemmy, she didn't like a joke I told.
Speaking of, Steve and Vicky are going to do an interview next Sunday.
"Oh,
Right?
I'm so nervous."
Wait,
Yes.
what?
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be
Steve
good.
and Vicky are going to do an interview next Sunday.
Oh, wait,
She's-
here or
Yeah.
Yeah, she's gonna come on live with me.
Yay! How exciting!
So you know what that means, Christy? We've been kicked out of the chat.
What?
Darn it.
No, we
know,
can both be
right?
on the same camera.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Steve! Vicky! No, I'm kidding.
You at the end of it, you guys are gonna be like, "You put up with what?"
Vicky, I think we need to talk.
I think maybe Lemmy, we need to have a chat with you about your woman.
Yeah, Lemmy needs to come on here.
you're Steve. I'll never not call you Lemmy. I don't think. I think you're stuck with it.
Oh,
No.
you're Steve as well. Wow, Steve's.
Yeah, I'm married
There's a
to
lot of Steves in the world.
Steve, so that's 5 Steves.
You know what? We've all experienced trauma, though. That's the thing with the name. You got to be able to. I mean, you're Steve, me, Lemmy. There's a couple Steves on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Well,
seventh
Carol,
is a Steve.
Do you feel like you've had a meeting today?
I sure do. Thank you guys. Does anybody else need a meeting right now? Because, I'm good. If anybody else needs a meeting, how are you, Karen?
We really don't need to get into that.
Okay.
That's just a messy thing. But I will tell you, your video of chasing the chickens was awesome.
The chicken's chasing me, you mean?
Yeah, the chickens
Yeah.
chasing the chick. Oh my God, it's hilarious.
Is that on your page?
Yeah.
Oh, it is so
I'm heading
funny.
right there.
It is so
I think
funny.
it's called Chickens Chasing the Chick.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
she's in like 65 different outfits. It's hysterical. Like
It's
one day she's like running and they're chasing her. Oh my god, it's so funny.
Well, I'm glad
And
they
there's
come
just
in a
one
red and white
chicken.
bucket because chickens are mean then.
No, there's one chicken.
Oh,
It's
they're
so
very,
funny.
they are
She
very
goes to
sweet.
this
I
one
only have one
side of like
left, sadly.
of the yard. She goes to one side of the yard, and the chicken is. I saw it. The chicken just stood there and watched her until she came around the other side, and then she ran along with the other chickens. Oh, it's so funny. It was so funny.
My
Carol's
back-
videos
babies.
that are like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes long are so great.
Thank
And
you.
the one that she did at Lisa Marie Presley's funeral was amazing.
Oh, well, thank you.
I thought
Yeah.
it was absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Mom Pa on the swing was so sweet. It was just, oh my God, so sweet.
That was fun. And what was most fun about it is, Steve never would let me do a video of him and put it on social media. He was so anti, and the thing is I was sitting down. I had just turned the camera on. I was sitting down on the bench, and he sat down at the same time, just as I turned the camera on. And that's when I started telling him what I was doing. And he, even when I was telling him what I was doing, he had not realized. He looked up and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm on
Hey,
camera."
that's me.
And I'm like, ha 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 ha, not my fault.
I love chickens too, Christy. They're delicious.
When my kids would get in trouble, that was their punishment, was to clean the chicken coop.
Okay.
I made them do that
Wow.
because it wore them out. It was gross work. It wasn't like the fun. Like when they cleaned the horse stalls, they got to drive the tractor, so they really liked that. So I made them clean the chicken coops as punishment.
I'm
Yeah.
being good at Mama Christie's, that's for sure.
I mean, I did. And there was one time I had all 4 of my kids in there, and they were just like, "We don't like this." I'm like, "Then don't fight with each other." And they were plotting against me at one point. I was like, "Go ahead. Go ahead. I got friends that have other chicken coops too.
Ugh.
You're not done."
There's a lot of stuff around here that poops.
Oh yes.
Right.
Yeah, we smell poop in lots of places around here.
Yeah.
Fragrance of nature.
Because I lock everybody up in the barn at night. So
Mhm.
yeah.
She opens up the door and she goes,
Yeah, I could picture the barn doors closing and it'd be like a Fireside episode where like, man, I'm glad she's gone. We can start talking and stuff now.
Indeed.
I swear they do talk to each other. They communicate in some which way.
Yeah.
Because Rosie and Splenda are always in my room, and they're my cats. And Rosie and Splenda
Christy,
starts
how would
doing
you
things
know
that
that?
Rosie does, and I
She's
can't.
an Aussie.
Huh?
Oh, she's Aussie.
She's in
Oh,
Australia. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Karen. I apologize.
yeah, I'm sorry. That was me.
No, that's weird.
That is very weird.
That is very weird. No, I swear they talk under the bed to each other. Like, well, don't talk to Mom. Don't go near her hand. Don't touch her. Don't let her come near you. Weirdest thing in the world.
Wouldn't that make...
My
I'm
kids
still back on the wombat thing.
It's my
Wait.
cats. My 2 girls.
Wouldn't a cube make their butt slam shut?
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't know.
How
That's
does
Or
that
just
work?
do 2 because I need some dice or something.
Ew.
Oh God, I've had a meeting.
Steve's like, and on that note, I'm out. Y'all are too much.
Is that a square colon?
That is definitely a fun fact.
Yes, it is a fun fact.
I don't think I'm going to sleep tonight now.
Oh, Steve.
Well, what can we do to make you feel like you've had a meeting?
You guys, just being here for you guys has been therapeutic for me.
Well, good. Thank you for being here.
For seeing you being vulnerable
Here.
and for seeing you two at the bottom step up and give support where I didn't know how. That was
It doesn't. What you being you, Steve, is what's most important.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you have to let dive into your brain. You being you,
Yeah.
you being here.
Yeah.
This
It
has been
doesn't matter if you don't understand it. We will explain it to you.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the fact of being a support for
I'm
somebody else.
fixing to snot up, you guys. Stop.
Aww,
Well,
we love you.
yes, we do.
And you have your big doctor's appointment on Tuesday.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd gone about 28 minutes without remembering that. Thanks.
Not a problem. Anytime. Anytime you need to remember just to be a little nervous, I'm your girl.
Oh,
I'm just laughing at what Christy just now said. I haven't Googled why wombats poop cubes. I don't want that in my search history.
That's funny.
Lemmy and Christy. And Cocas, is that how you say that? Well, they throw their babies at predators.
Oh, that's light. That's light. That's
Delightful. Aren't they pleasant little creatures?
Jeez.
How do they survive as a species?
I don't know. I thought you were wearing your Save Bob Ferris shirt today. I don't know why.
Yesterday I did, and I thought the protest was 2 days, but it was just the one.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah. Aaron was funny about that though last night. He was funny about it.
Oh. Well, ladies, I'm out.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I'm not out. I'm not out of here. I'm out of helpful things to say.
You don't need to say
Can I interest you in a snide remark?
Sure.
a snack. Would you like a
Nothing.
snack?
Sounds like you all three got exes that just needed a good ass kicking.
I had more than one.
I know you did. I know you have.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason that my husband has never met my ex.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
when my daughter gets married next year, she told me, she's like, of course he's invited, but just know dad will be there. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that. I will be there, but he won't. And that's why they will hopefully never meet, because I don't think that would go down well.
Oh, rip a hole in the time-space continuum.
Right. But even if he did, the only thing is that it would just make my husband feel better. It wouldn't change.
Probably would. I bet you it would.
It would. I guarantee. And with his ex-military training, like, it wouldn't just be.
No.
But
I'm
that
ex-military.
will happen.
What he'll probably do is look at you and go, "How did you let yourself put up with that?"
Oh, I've been asked that a lot.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it's not even a fair question.
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
No, but that's the way a man's brain works. I'm
right.
sorry. We're
right.
I didn't say we were wired right. I just said that's what.
Well, and it's a hard thing to explain to someone who doesn't understand. It can be very frustrating. And when we were first married, Michael tried to understand it, and I was like, look, just it causes
leave it
a fight.
alone.
Like, it causes a fight every time. Just and now we don't talk about it. There's
Lenny, you're leading me in getting stomped on the head 2-1. I've only had my head stomped on twice. Oh, I've only had it once, so you're up 2-1.
Damn. Well,
I've
you've had
been
some pieces of work, haven't you, Lemmy? Wow.
I'm gonna say, Lemmy, yeah.
ugh. My nose leans to this side for a reason. I've been punched with fists, boxing gloves, boots.
That's a
I
highlight.
used to be a doorman. When I was, I mean, it. I've been, but that stuff just washes off me, and to hear you guys be so traumatized by what's happened to you in your past lives, it it's like we're all old enough to know back before cable, when we had antennas on our TV and you turn the antenna sideways and the TV goes fuzzy. That's
Yeah.
what my brain does on this topic.
Yeah. I can appreciate that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I understand
It is
that.
unfathomable. Who would do that and why?
Baba, come here.
Yeah.
Come here, Bub. Come here. Frankie, come on. Come here.
Well, I have got to go take care of my fur babies
Okie doke.
because it is
And here's my
dinner time
Franklin.
and bedtime. Oh,
We're-
cute.
Aw.
the rest of the family's having sloppy joes and air fryer fries, and I'm having a squash wrap.
We've talked about that. I hope you're taking care of yourself on Tuesday after your appointment.
Oh,
Tuesday is, I think, the day where I find out if I go to committee or not
Okay.
Okay.
for the transplant.
Okay. Oh, we will be praying on that one.
Please.
Big
We
time.
are going to be praying huge for you.
Yes. Big time.
I don't know. I don't want to traumatize you guys too bad, but
Oh, come on.
Come on. We've been through worse.
there's the wire that goes into my stomach and up to my heart. I have
Ouch.
a wire hanging out of me at all times.
Okay. Ouch.
And,
Yeah.
and it's
for that.
infected, and 95% of them get infected. So I'm down to Bactrim now,
Right.
and
Wow.
it's not going to heal until the wire is removed, and the only way it gets removed is getting a heart from another human being. Thank you, Candy.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
tribe has had a meeting.
I would say. Is everybody in the chat good?
Everybody here good? Frank's good. He's just chilling. This is my best buddy, by the way.
I can see that.
He
What
is
a
my best
sweetie.
buddy. He hates everybody else in the house but
That's a
me.
sweetie pie right there.
He's a Norwegian Arctic cat.
Wow. He's so pretty.
And believe it or not, we got him on out of a cat colony. Now, who would believe that a rare cat would be found in a cat colony?
Huh. Well, I guess stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lemmy, thank you. I'm giving everything that can be used.
Me too.
So am
I
I.
have it on my driver's license that I'm an organ donor.
Yeah,
Whatever
me
somebody
too.
needs.
Well, I told
mean,
you,
my
Steve, my
eyes.
cousin, after he passed away, he donated his whole body to science.
Right on. I'd love to do that. The problem with here is that Arkansas is one of the handful of archaic states that will not let what do you call it?
Certified or
No, what they do to the body after when they're
on
buried.
autopsies.
No, what they fill
Embalmed.
embalmed.
Embalm the
They will
body.
not let
Ding, 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 ding.
Arkansas will not let unembalmed corpses across state lines, and that's
Okay,
why
well, get
Arkansas
this.
can't
Are you
donate their bodies
ready?
to science, which is ridiculous. I would love to do
What
that.
a stupid rule.
Because
That's
the
a
way
very
my cousin
stupid
did
rule.
it, he donated it to University of Penn Hospital.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if
your body can be donated to a teaching hospital within Arkansas.
Lemmy,
Yeah, there is
Let me-
that kind of
my
thing.
wife will not allow anything.
I really would like to donate my body to science. I
My
really
wife
Yeah, you
would
could
never
also
allow
do
that.
it to criminology.
yeah.
All you have to do is put it in your will that you want your body donated, even like to a boneyard or something like that, and they
Yeah.
will do it. They
Okay.
have
Well,
to.
I've got machines that are spoken for when I die. There's a heart pump here and a AICD right here, and those are already spoken for. No one can. Vicky can't sell them while I'm alive, or after I'm gone, I should say.
Oh.
And she won't let me. She won't let me get cremated either. I could have it in my will, and she'd find a way around it.
Really?
Yeah, she needs the body.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Right on.
That's a
good
huge
to
thing
do,
with football
Christy.
players, Christy.
Yes.
A lot of football players have had trouble with acting like psychopaths after football because of all the concussions they've had.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Okay. Well, if everybody feels like we've had a meeting, how about a moment of silence for the person that's out there in their addiction still suffering, and anybody who's still suffering, and those suffering in recovery, because that's real,
Yeah.
and also those we've loved and lost.
All right, you take the lead, boss.
God,
God,
grant me the serenity
grant me the serenity
to accept the things I cannot
to
change,
accept the things I cannot change,
courage to change the things I can,
courage to change the things I can,
and wisdom to know the difference.
and wisdom to know the difference.
Oh man, y'all.
And
You know, you said, do you feel like I've had a meeting? I feel like I've had a baby.
Steve, Steve, it's okay. You're all right. We're here.
Yeah.
Nothing's wrong. We're all
You,
good.
you guys are the traumatized ones, and you're soothing me. What?
Well, you know what? Hearing
It's not
hearing
easy
the
to listen to
trauma
this
can be
stuff.
very difficult. So
It
yes,
can.
you do need the soothing.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
That's the craziest 2.25 hours I've ever sat through in my entire life,
Wow.
except for
Sure.
sleep deprivation and basic training.
Oh, there you go. We're no
Yeah.
longer we're nothing like basic training.
Oh,
You just have to keep coming back.
I promise. I'm committed to this.
Right on. I can see that. And thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being here, both of you. And you pick up the phone when I call.
Haven't been really well. I
I
can't
know you
hear
haven't.
very well, and I can't see very well.
Just pick up and say, I'm not well, and I'll shut up
Goodbye.
and hang up. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not doing
I'm glad.
It's
Candy.
been very cathartic for Candy, too. Good. Which basic training? Army, 1988. February 1988, Fort Bragg, or Fort Dix.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you were right in my neighborhood, 15 minutes away.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where my first rescue dog came from. She was from Fort Dix, McGuire Air Force Base. It's 15 minutes away from me, literally.
All right, guys.
All right,
I'm gonna
guys.
go have a warm milk in an early night.
You think?
Right on.
I don't even know how I'm gonna heat it up. Fort Jackson Jump School. That's where we went to
There's
learn
Splenda.
how to. Or no, I went to Fort Leonard Wood actually for jump, where I learned how to jump out of an airplane.
Wow.
In Missouri.
13 times, and on the 13th jump, it was Friday to the 13th, and it was raining, and it was at night, and they had to kick me on the plane.
Hmm.
So All
That's
right.
a little frightening.
All right.
What are you on the? Okay, I'm going to church.
Good night, sister.
Good
Good night, Carol. Love you guys.
night. Love
Love
you
you.
too. Good night.
No,
I love you.
And thank you.
no, you're
You're
welcome.
welcome. I love you, Carol.
Love you too, Karen.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. I love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye. And peace, y'all. Have a good night. And thanks for tuning in. And thank you for your patience. It's been a long one, a tedious one, as my mama would say. And thank you. For real. Peace.